Chapter 1. Into the murk. The warning sign at the base of the trail was barely legible, its paint faded, its metal warped by time and storms. A single word stood out in smeared red. Turn back. Eliodorn didn't even glance at it. He adjusted the straps of his pack, tightened his boots, and stepped onto the desolate mountain path as the early morning sun struggled behind a curtain of gray. The climb was slow and steady at first, winding through black spruce and mossy stone, the air laced with a strange chill that bit deeper than the altitude should allow. The trees thinned gradually, revealing jagged silhouettes of higher cliffs cloaked in thickening mist. Every step upward seemed to pull the world tighter around him, less sky, more haze, until even his own breath looked like tendrils joining the fog. 2 hours in, silence had swallowed everything. Bird song vanished. Wind stopped rustling the branches. No insects, no footsteps behind or ahead, just the squelch of his boots in the damp loam and the soft hiss of his breath echoing louder than it should. Then came the shift. The fog didn't just appear. It poured. One moment he could see the path ahead, the next visibility collapsed to barely an arm's length. It was dense, milky, and cold, like wet gauze clinging to his face. The air thickened with moisture, and the scent of rot wormed into his nostrils. Wet bark, old blood, something metallic beneath. Eliah paused, heart quickening. He was alone. He had to be alone. Still, his instincts clenched like a trap snapping shut. Then, crunch. A footstep, not his. He froze. Crunch, crunch. It came from just ahead, slow, steady. He squinted into the fog. A silhouette emerged. A man. Or something like one. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a jacket that looked familiar, almost exactly like Eliah's own. The figure's head tilted slightly, unnaturally, like it was listening to something only it could hear. "Hey!" Eliah called out, his voice dull and muffled, like shouting underwater. "You okay?" The figure stopped. Another shape appeared beside it. Then another. A procession, slow-moving, shuffling in staggered synchrony, some limping, others dragging. They came forward without sound, without warning. Eliah's legs wanted to run. His brain hadn't caught up yet. More fog peeled back. Details emerged. The first figure's face was Eliah's, but torn. The jaw hung askew, barely tethered by sinew. One eye socket was hollow, black and glistening with something oily. Blood matted the side of the head, revealing cracked bone through broken flesh. The neck twitched with insectile spasms, like something was moving beneath the skin. Eliah screamed. He turned to bolt, but another stood behind him. This one wore his face, too, only pale and bloated, mottled with deep purple patches. Its lips were chewed away, exposing teeth and gums. Its abdomen bulged grotesquely, wriggling like a sack of snakes. It stepped toward him, reeking of putrefaction and salt water. He ducked under its grasp and ran, branches clawed at his face, mist slicing across his vision like icy razors. He stumbled down a slope slick with mud and moss, crashing through the underbrush. A sharp pain sliced across his palm. He'd fallen on a rock. Blood smeared across his skin, bright and warm. Panting, heart hammering like a jackhammer in his throat, he stumbled upon a clearing. There, lying in a circle of toppled stones, was a pile of bones. Human bones. Some old, bleached white, others still wrapped in shriveled gray skin. Scraps of clothing clung to the remains, hiking gear, tattered backpacks, rusted knives. One skull grinned at him from beneath a moldy beanie. And at the very center, a skeleton sat propped upright, holding a mirror in its lap. The mirror was black glass, smooth as obsidian. As Eliah stepped closer, it shimmered. He looked into it and saw himself. Every version. Rotting, gutted, torn apart, hanging from a tree, drowning in mud, skinned. His reflection shifted through each version in a flickering carousel of carnage. Each corpse had his face, twisted, lifeless, grotesquely defiled. He screamed again, fell backward, and scrambled from the clearing, dragging himself on bloodied palms. Behind him the fog thickened, swirled, and began to take form again. Figures moved within it. Familiar. Final. The dead were coming, and they all wore his face. Chapter 2. Faces from the Fog. Eliah ran until his legs burned, until his breath came in wheezing gasps, until every branch he brushed past lashed his skin like a whip. The forest offered no bearings, only shifting shapes and clawing shadows. The fog had swallowed the path whole, turned the world into a womb of cold blindness. Trees loomed like skeletal sentinels, their gnarled arms twisted in silent screams. He tripped over a root and slammed into the ground with a thud that knocked the breath from his lungs. Dirt filled his mouth. Sharp stones tore into his forearm. He spat blood and leaves, eyes wild, ears ringing. His heart threatened to seize in his chest. Then, laughter. Not joyous, not human. It sounded like his own voice, but warped, high-pitched and breathless, like a recording played backwards through broken speakers. Eliah crawled forward, dragging himself through the underbrush like a wounded animal. He pushed through a thick curtain of vines and found himself at the edge of a decaying log cabin, half swallowed by the forest. Its roof sagged under years of rot, and ivy strangled its porch. The windows were black and cracked, like they had been watching the forest rot for decades. With no other option, he staggered toward it and shoved the door open with his shoulder. The air inside was worse than outside, damp, suffocating, heavy with mildew and the unmistakable stench of death. Not just rot, something older, buried death, forgotten and left to fester. Inside, dust swirled in shafts of gray light that bled through the broken boards. Cobwebs webbed from the ceiling to the furniture like veins in a corpse. A table sat in the center. Broken in half and nailed to one wall was a tattered journal, pages glued to the other with dark stains. Eliah yanked it free and opened it. The first page was neat, dated 5 years ago. Day 1. Fog came fast today. The air tastes wrong. Compass doesn't work. Saw someone in the mist that looked like me, but older. They didn't speak, just bled from the eyes. The entries got shorter, more frantic. Day 3. More of them now. They won't stop looking at me. Day 5. They talk in my voice. They whisper how I'll die. One said, "I'll carve you hollow." I think I believe him. Day 8. Tried to leave. Trail loops. I walk for hours, come back here every time. Time is sick. Fog watches me. The last page wasn't even written. It was etched into the page with something sharp. I saw the one that smiled. Don't trust the one that smiles. Blood stained the lower corner. Suddenly, the boards behind Eliah creaked. He spun around, journal clutched like a weapon. The cabin's door was ajar again, though he remembered shutting it. He stepped closer. Something hit the floorboards behind him. Wet. Heavy. He turned slowly and choked on his scream. In the corner, where shadows melted into walls, stood himself, but not whole. This version had flayed strips of skin hanging from his chest, like meat curtains. Ribs jutted through torn muscle. His lips were peeled back in a permanent snarl, teeth cracked and gums bleeding. One hand was missing entirely, the stump wrapped in a coil of intestine like a macabre trophy. And he was smiling. Eliah backed up, legs trembling. No, 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 no. The figure raised a hand, his remaining hand, and pointed. Eliah turned in time to see another version of himself crawl through the door like a dying dog. This one had no eyes, just sockets bubbling with maggots and a jaw dislocated so far as scraped the floor as he moved. He dragged a hiking pole still rammed through his thigh. Eliah grabbed a broken chair leg and swung at the first one. Prick. The thing's neck snapped sideways with a sickening pop, but it didn't fall. Its smile widened. From the split in its throat, a gurgling laugh hissed out like a leaking pipe. Then it lunged. Eliah screamed and jabbed the chair leg forward, driving it through the flayed version's open chest cavity. The wood sank into wet, tearing flesh and cracked bone. Something snapped. Ribs? Sternum and black blood sprayed across Eliah's shirt, scalding hot and reeking of tar. The corpse spasmed, shuddered, and collapsed, twitching like an overrun insect. Eliah turned and kicked the crawling one square in its broken face. Teeth flew. It howled, his own voice, twisted, echoing, and scrambled backward into the fog beyond the door, vanishing with a hiss. Panting, shivering, Eliah slammed the door and jammed the table against it. Every muscle in his body throbbed with exhaustion and adrenaline. Then his phone vibrated. His heart nearly stopped. He fumbled it out of his pocket, praying for signal, anything. But there were no bars. Just a new notification, one new photo saved to your gallery. He opened it. The screen displayed a grainy image of him, asleep in the cabin, his mouth slightly open, blood crusting his lip. The photo had been taken from the ceiling corner, like something had clung there, watching. He dropped the phone. A new sound slithered through the cabin walls, whispering. Endless and layered, like dozens of him, each muttering in reverse, growing louder. Eliah clutched the journal to his chest, knuckles white. The fog outside pulsed like a living thing. And it hadn't finished with him yet. Chapter 3. Death's Parade. The cabin groaned under the pressure of the fog, as if the mist itself pressed against the rotting walls like a predator testing its cage. Eliah sat curled in a corner, the broken journal clutched to his chest, smeared with both his blood and that of his others. The smell of cooked meat still clung to the air from the thing he impaled, its black blood having eaten through a plank in the floor. He hadn't slept. He couldn't sleep. Every blink threatened images. Shattered skulls, crawling corpses, teeth gnashing through his own flesh. The mirror from the clearing still flickered behind his eyes. Its carousel of horrors burned into his brain like a brand. He saw his own throat, slit open in one frame. In the next, he was impaled on a tree branch like a grotesque bird ornament. Then burned alive, skin peeling in strips, lips melted into black curls. Eliah stood slowly, dragging the chair leg with him like a sword, and approached the door. It was silent now, too silent. With a deep breath, he shoved the table aside and eased the door open. Fog drifted in tendrils no thicker than before, but now it felt heavier, infused with a deeper malice. Like it knew he was watching. Like it was watching back. He stepped outside. The forest had changed. The trees were twisted caricatures of themselves, bark peeling like flesh, limbs reaching downward as if they mourned. The dirt was dark and spongy, as though soaked with something thicker than rain. Where once there were birds, insects, even distant animal calls, now there was nothing but that same oppressive silence. Then the crunch of a footstep broke it. Eliah spun. They were coming. Here, a procession. Not shambling, marching. A grim parade of death, every figure wearing his face, each more mutilated than the last. The first walked upright, slow but steady, its skin a mosaic of third-degree burns, eyeballs melted to pink jelly, jaw fused shut. Steam rose off it in slow curls. The second had no legs. It dragged itself with broken fingernails worn to the bone, intestines trailing like ribbons behind it, knotted around branches and rocks. It looked up at Eliah and mouthed his name with lips slashed into ribbons. Then a third, still standing, but head twisted backward, walking with an eerie backward gait. Blood poured from its eye sockets, and teeth jutted out through splits in the cheeks like ivory shards forced through paper. Dozens followed. Each represented a different death. Suffocated, beheaded, torn in half. Skin peeled like a glove. One had hundreds of tiny holes burrowed into its face, infested, moving, buzzing. Another held its own severed arm and was using the fingers to stroke Eliah's name into the soil. Eliah backed up until his heel hit the edge of the porch. They all stopped in unison. The one with the backward head stepped forward. It spoke in a gurgling slur, tongue thick and black, flopping like a dead fish in its mouth. Eliah shook his head, voice hoarse. No, I'm not. This isn't real. But the fog closed in, coiling like a snake. The corpses started to change. They flickered. In one blink, they were his dead reflections. In the next, they were other people. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all twisted and tortured. Children with eyeless sockets, old men with mouths stitched shut, women whose fingers had been snapped and bent into prayer hands. Then back to him again. His throat burned. He turned and ran. But the trees had shifted again, bark cracking open like scabs, revealing twitching, raw muscle beneath. One tree moaned as he passed it, sap bleeding from its knots like tears. He stumbled onto a new path, or maybe an old one twisted into something unrecognizable. Eliah ran until he reached a ravine, and there, at the edge, stood another version of himself. But this one was intact, no wounds, no decay. It smiled, the same smile as the others. Eliah froze. "What the fuck are you doing?" The smiling version tilted its head. "The one who wins." He had stepped forward. Eliah raised the chair leg, shaking. "You're not me." "But I will be." It lunged. Eliah met it halfway. The two collided with a brutal crack, wood against bone, fists against flesh. They rolled across the dirt, grappling. Eliah drove the chair leg down, missed the throat, and it buried into the shoulder. Blood sprayed. Red, not black. The smiling version shrieked, too human, too real. It lashed out, tearing a chunk from Eliah's forearm with its teeth. Pain exploded, and Eliah screamed, grabbing a rock with his good hand and smashing it into the smiling skull. Again, until bone gave way, until teeth scattered, until the face stopped looking like his at all. Panting, weeping, Eliah knelt beside the ruined corpse, blood soaking into his pants, mixing with the mud. His arm throbbed with agony, blood pouring freely, the bite already swelling. Then the fog whispered again, right beside his ear. One was close, but not quite. The others were still coming, and they were smiling too. Chapter 4. The Time Split. Eliah staggered away from the broken body, cradling his mangled arm. Blood dripped steadily, leaving a trail of red breadcrumbs behind him, soaking into the dirt like a signature the forest had demanded. The bite was deep, infected. Already the veins in his arm were darkening, spiderwebbing out from the wound like ink in water. The fog was thick again, pulsing with life, no longer passive. It moved with intent, folding around him, herding him. The whispering voices rose to a chorus of garbled syllables, some screaming, some weeping, others laughing in broken rhythms. Every sound came in his voice. The air itself trembled. The forest path turned and twisted until it birthed another clearing, unnatural in its geometry, too circular, too smooth, like something massive had melted a perfect wound into the earth. At the center stood a monument, a ring of crude stone slabs, blackened and cracked, forming a sort of altar. And shackled to one of the stones was a man, or what remained of one. He was stripped to the waist, skin leathery and sunken, covered in lash marks, deep carvings and bruises that bled sap-like pus. His hair was long, matted, and his eyes were wide with white terror, pupils quivering like something broken inside his skull. He reeked of urine, rot, and madness. When he saw Eliah, he laughed. The sound was choked and wet. "Another me, another one." He tugged at his restraints, the chains clinking like bones. "You're fresh. Not rotting yet. Good, good." Eliah approached, wary, his crude weapon dragging through the dirt. "Who are you?" "I'm you," the man hissed. "One of us. One of many. I fought it. Like you. Thought I could win." He leaned forward, baring teeth filed into jagged points. "I can see your deaths in your face. So many ways." Eliah lifted the chair leg. "Tell me what's happening." The man threw back his head and cackled, the sound shattering into a hacking cough. "The fog shows futures. Endless death, endless you. But one future is real. Just one. You don't know which, but it does." "What is it?" The man went still, his eyes rolled upward. "It is the fog. It is the thing behind it. It reflects, yes, but it also chooses. It hungers for the most fearful ending, the most delicious terror. You feed it. We all did. Every scream, every failure, it savors them." Eliah's stomach twisted. The man leaned in. "But there's a choice, a bargain. You give it one death freely, and maybe, it spares you the rest. You pick the pain, the body you'll wear when you die." Miller backed away. "That's not a choice. That's surrender." "Then run." The man grinned, exposing his black gums. "See how many more of you can kill. They never run out." Suddenly the fog split open. Not drifted. Split, like a curtain torn from the heavens. And from within came a new horror. Himself again. But this one was pristine. Clean. Dressed in new hiking gear. Skin untouched, eyes clear. But they were empty. Eliah felt it before he understood it. This one wasn't a corpse. It was himself from another timeline, a version who had chosen, and the fog had accepted. He stepped into the circle and spoke in a voice drained of all humanity. "I gave myself willingly. One clean death. It let me live in this form. A hunter." Then he moved. Fast, faster than any corpse. He closed the distance in seconds, grabbing Eliah by the throat and lifting him off the ground, his fingers crushed like a vice. The infected bite screamed with pain as Eliah flailed, vision spotting, lungs heaving. The restrained man howled. "This is your choice. Fight or become." Eliah twisted, pulling the crude weapon from his side and driving it into the other's gut. Blood sprayed, a normal color, human, but the clone didn't scream, just smiled. Too slow. The fake Eliah threw him across the clearing like a rag doll. Eliah slammed into one of the stones with a sickening crack, pain splintering through his spine. He collapsed in the dirt, coughing blood. The clone advanced. Eliah looked up, teeth clenched through agony. "If I'm going to die," he whispered. "I'll die choosing." He grabbed the chain connected to the tortured man's wrist and pulled. With a scream, the shackle tore free, skin ripping, bone crunching. The man fell forward, snarling like an animal. "Finally," he hissed. "A different ending." The man lunged at the clone, tackling him to the ground. They rolled together, biting, clawing, fists turning faces into meat. Eliah forced himself upright, ribs grinding. He stumbled to the altar. At its center was another mirror, smaller than before. Oval, black as obsidian. But this one didn't reflect anything. Instead, it pulsed with light, and choices appeared in its surface, faint like steam on glass, came from the red pine trees in the icefall. Faded into work over crush under boulders. Choke on your own lungs. Each flickered, one after the other. Eliah reached out with a bloodied hand. The pain in his arms spiked, fire under skin, and his fingers brushed the glass. One option stayed still, split by your own hand. The mirror smiled. Behind him, the clone screamed. Bones snapped, flesh tore. The shackled man tore his own twin apart, laughing until his jaw dislocated. Deal with it. Eliah raised the mirror above his head. "I picked none of you," and smashed it into the stone. The glass exploded in a shower of razored shards, cutting through his face, his chest, embedding deep in his arms and neck. Blood gushed from a dozen wounds. Light erupted from the altar, blinding white, then deep red. The fog recoiled. Thought for the first time, it screamed. Eliah collapsed. The man beside him howled with glee. "You split the time. You broke the death." Then silence fell. The fog retreated, and the forest shifted. Something ancient had been wounded, and Eliah was still breathing. Barely. Chapter 5. Fogbound. Eliah woke with blood in his mouth and pain seared into every fiber of his body. The mirror was gone. Only a circular scorch mark remained, the blackened altar stones cracked and hissing with faint rising steam. Around him, the forest was silent again, but this silence felt different. Not vacant, expectant. Like something unseen was holding its breath. His arms were a patchwork of deep glass wounds, still oozing, each breath a blade in his ribs. His skin was slick with blood, dirt, and sweat. The infection from the bite had crept higher, turning his veins into bruised ropes, and his fingers now curled in spasms beyond his control. Across from him, the man, the one who had once been chained, lay twitching, grinning through a mouth of shattered teeth. His body was broken in ways that suggested he shouldn't be alive. Bones protruded through skin like jagged roots, and one eye dangled from its socket by a single nerve strand. Yet he laughed, a wet gargle that gushed blood from his lungs. "You did it. The timeline fractured. It doesn't know where you belong now." Eliah tried to speak but vomited blood instead. The man dragged himself closer, leaving a red smear. "But it's angry. You made it hungry, confused." He gripped Eliah's shirt, breath hot and metallic. "So now you'll see all the endings at once." Then his head jerked violently to the side, spine cracking like a green stick. His neck twisted a full turn before something yanked him into the fog, so fast it was like he'd been swallowed whole by a void. A faint crunch echoed from deep within the mist, like bones being ground to paste. Eliah tried to crawl. His limbs refused. He blinked, and the trees were different. He was no longer in the clearing. He was at the trailhead. The rusted signs swayed gently in a breeze that didn't exist. The forest behind him looked normal, inviting, even. Birds chirped. A squirrel darted through the underbrush. But something was wrong. The air shimmered, subtly wrong, like a curtain of glass sat between him and the world. He looked down. His legs were gone. Gone. Mm-hmm. Mm. 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 From the hips down, he was nothing but a shredded torso resting on a pool of blood. His intestines coiled like wet ropes, steaming in the cool air. He hadn't even noticed. His nerves were too ruined, his body too broken. Then came the footsteps. Soft, deliberate. He looked up and saw himself again. But this version was calm, serene, wearing clean clothes, hair combed, face unmarked. It stepped lightly over the blood and crouched beside him, tilting its head. "You broke the chain," the other Eliah said softly. "But the fog, it needs something." Eliah tried to speak, couldn't. The twin leaned in, whispering into his ear. "You're the anomaly now, and anomalies don't last." He placed a hand on Eliah's face, gentle, then pushed. Fingers pressed into his eyes, thumbs gouging forward with slow, unhurried pressure. Eliah's body seized, jerking violently as his eyeballs squelched from their sockets, warm fluid streaming down his cheeks. He tried to scream, but a hand clamped over his mouth. The world went black, but he didn't die. He awoke, sightless, but whole again. Standing, he was in the fog once more. Figures surrounded him. They didn't advance, they didn't speak, they watched. All of them were him. Thousands of them. Dead, dying, screaming, weeping, laughing, gutted, burned, skinned, drowned, hollowed. Hunter stepped forward and offered him a mirror. He saw nothing. Then the fog spoke, not in words, but in a feeling. Cold and infinite. "You are chosen. You are fog-bound. You are the seed." Eliah dropped the mirror. His skin began to pale, veins turning silver. His breath came shallow, his thoughts frayed. He was becoming something else. The final horror was not death. It was permanence. His body stretched into mist, vapor trailing from his limbs. His face melted into 1,000 iterations. He screamed, but it came out as fog, curling into the woods. He had become one of them, the future corpse walking the present, waiting at the trailhead to greet the next soul, brave or foolish enough to step into the fog.